Action! Dr. Pinesett here, the pre-med productivity expert, and today we're talking about college prestige and how it affects your ability to get into medical school, get into graduate school, and we're going to talk about some specific strategies for the advantages and disadvantages of different types of colleges and kind of how you can maximize each college you're at. So if you've been looking to decide what college you should go to advance your career, and if you're at a certain school and you're recognizing there's some issues and you want some help overcoming them, this is the video for you. Whatever school you're at right now, whatever questions you have about getting to medical school, put them in the box so we can make sure we get to them today. We are live action. I'm gonna hit the intro, then we're gonna get started, y'all.
Today is the day, guys. You're going to take your future into your own hands. You're going to dominate. You're going to be successful. No excuses, just dominate.
All right, guys. Like I said, Dr. Pinesett here. And as always, I'm here to help you be more productive, help you be more positive, help you reach your goals, help you get into medical school. We're thinking better, we're studying better, we're pre-medding better so we can get into medical school. Today we're talking about college prestige. It's a question I get a lot, and so I thought I'd address it here and let you know how that plays into your med school admissions prospects. What is up, guys? Hello, hello, hello. Julian, what up? I'm doing wonderful today, actually, guys. I'm off work. I rushed home and I got here to do this live stream with you guys. So I'm excited about it, guys. If you don't know, we're live action every Monday, every Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Immediately following this, I have my exclusive coaching with my core students. Brant, I was just reading your email. Please come to coaching tonight, and then let's also have a phone conference and talk about kind of what you've been dealing with, some strategies for dealing with that in med school success. But congratulations on med school and dealing with some difficult times and getting through it. All right, so college prestige. Where do we start with this? Well, let's first understand and let's answer the question right at the top. Does college prestige matter? Does it affect your chance of getting medical school? Absolutely it does, guys. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you because it does play a factor. However, it is not the main factor for you getting to medical school. It is something that is kind of like if you think about a sundae, it has ice cream. Oh yeah, okay, it's ice cream. But what makes the sundae? It's the whipped cream, it's the hot fudge, also they put it over the top. And that's kind of what your college prestige is, and that's how it affects your ability to navigate. But no matter what size college you go to, no matter how famous, how big, whatever, how well known or unknown your college is, you can be successful from that college. Amanda, hello. So, yes, it matters. Yes, it matters. How does it matter? Well, I think it's easiest to go through. I think, let's say this first. First, a lot of students, they want to go to the big name college because of the big name. How many of you guys are like that, right? And that's the same way it ends up happening with medical school too. I want to go to the big name medical school, I got to go there. I got to go to Harvard. Nothing. I have a student, and the whole time I've known him, he's always wanted to go to Stanford for medical school. It's one of the things that drew him to me. He's like, "You want to Stanford medical school? I need you to be my mentor." He like jumped on to me, and I was like, "Hey, listen, Stanford is the best medical school in the country. It's not even debatable, but." Other medical schools are great too. You don't have to get so set on Stanford Medical School. He's like, no, it's got to be Stanford Medical School or nothing. Stanford Medical School. And so he was so obsessed with it. And what's interesting I think it kind of affected the way he approached his application in the last couple of years. And I don't think he put his full heart into his application in the last 2 cycles. And then this last cycle, he finally was open to doing things outside of Stanford and actually putting some effort into the secondaries outside of Stanford. And what do you know? He gets into a great top 20 medical school. So I think the first thing is don't get hung up on names. Get hung up on places that offer what you need to be successful. And for each and every one of us as students, it's different things. That's how we get into this discussion of prestige and how does it matter. But the advantage of going to a prestigious, well-known university, there's quite a few, right? There's also some disadvantages. Let's get into it. So the advantage of going to a prestigious college, first and foremost, is that it is well-known. There's a huge name. Why is that name significant? Because synonymous with that name might be excellence, right? Might be familiarity. There might be other students who've come from that big, large university that have gone on to this medical school, and so they know about it. And so with that, it kind of gives you a kind of a head start. It gives you this buffer to people are going to assume you may be better than you are. So if you go to an undergrad like Stanford, and you're in Stanford for undergrad, and you go to apply to medical school, people say, oh, they got into Stanford for undergrad, they must be incredible. They're going to assume that off the top before they get into your application, so it kind of colors your whole application. It's how they look at it in the lens. It's like when you see someone out, and they're dressed really nicely, like, oh, they're dressed really nicely. They must be a professional. They must have money. They must care about themselves. That's someone I want to know. Versus someone who comes in shabby with holes in their stuff, and they can't put a sentence together. That first impression, it shades your whole interaction with them. They're working from a hole or working from a head. And that's what a prestigious university does. And so when you have that name, it can really, really help you. It kind of opens those doors up. But the important thing is that you follow through and you're actually capable of standing on your own once you walk through those doors. And I actually knew a student who was at Stanford for undergrad when I was at Stanford for medical school. And they were like, oh, yeah, I got here into Stanford. And they were all excited about their prospects. And this was a first generation college student who was at Stanford. And they thought that being at Stanford was sufficient to get them into medical school. And they didn't apply themselves fully at Stanford. And as a result, their grades weren't as good as they should have been, could have been. That student didn't get into medical school on their first attempt. I had another student who was actually my student who went to the state school, San Francisco State, which is not too far from Stanford, but it's a state school, not really well known as a pre-med hub. It's not super prestigious, but my student who went there, we strategized, right? Taught them how to study, taught them how to recognize it's not about where I'm going to university, it's about me performing and executing there. And this student executed, put together a nice transcript, put together a nice resume, and as a result, they got into a top 10 medical school on their first attempt. And so here you have two first generation students, one at Stanford, one at a state school. Despite the big name and the prestige, it didn't carry because that student didn't perform and deliver and live up to the Stanford standard. So does that make sense, guys? So it'll help you open those doors. You'll get some looks, but you got to walk through that door and you got to be delivering. The other advantage of going to a big prestigious university is that because it is big and prestigious, people will want to donate to it. And so they have huge, what we call endowments. These universities are well funded. And when they're well funded, they like to sprinkle that money around for their students. Stanford actually has one of the largest endowments in the country. And because of that, their students have huge opportunities. It's like they're handing out research projects. They're handing out, hey, what do you want to do? And we're going to support that. There's huge grants and opportunities for these students. And that's great, right? So going to a UC, I went to UC Irvine. It was when I went, it was like the ugly stepchild of the UC system. But even then, there was tremendous resources at a UC university having that prestige. They had lots of research opportunities. And so when you go to these big prestigious universities, they're going to be well funded, and therefore it's going to be lots of resources, lots of opportunities, particularly for pre-med students for research. When you go to a smaller school, a state school, a less well-known school, there's going to be less funding there, and therefore there's less research opportunities. There's less opportunities to do other things that you might want to get involved in. And so that creates an issue. With that issue, can it be overcome? Absolutely. How do we do it, guys? Well, if our current university doesn't have all these research opportunities, doesn't have all these on-campus built-in opportunities for you, then it's essential you can totally get around it by planning ahead. So we're going to look at our career and say, listen, these are all the things that I'm interested in doing before medical school. And we lay it out. And then we say, okay, wait, these are things I want to do. Now let's go outside of the university and plan ahead and aim to do these things either off campus during the year or to take advantage of summer programs. And it's one of my biggest recommendations to students. If you are at a resource poor school that doesn't have a lot of on-campus built-in opportunities, be proactive and look for summer enrichment opportunities. Summer research here, summer research there. There's tons of these programs, and actually summer research is some of my favorite research for pre-meds because a lot of times these summer research programs know you're only there for the summer. So they're going to give you only something that's bite-sized that you can get accomplished in the summer so that way you can get a presentation, get a publication, and move on with your life. And so it's actually a really great way to get involved with research, particularly if you're not that interested in research. So for me, I was interested in research, so I took full advantage of summer research opportunities to get funding to pay for my summer, to get a concrete research project done, to get outputs, which med schools care about. And so those were great opportunities. I have another student who just finished doing a study abroad program where they got to experience, it was awesome. It's a combined program of clinical experience and public health experience. So they got to travel around and do different countries 6 weeks at a time, all around the world, learning about different healthcare systems. And simultaneously, while they were learning about the healthcare system as a whole, they got to shadow and work at different clinics and different health environments around the world to be able to see firsthand what those clinical experiences are, what the patients experience, and what their system, how their system functions. And so it was a great dual purpose for this student who has aspirations to go into healthcare administration, to do public health, where they were able to get public health experience, travel the world paid for a year, right? For the summer, travel for the summer paid 6 weeks at a time in these two different countries. And then simultaneously, they're getting clinical experience. So it was a win-win-win project that they were able to find, even though they're at a smaller private school, they were able to find this opportunity because we were proactive and sought out these things. So yes, prestigious schools have more opportunities, but even if you're at a smaller school, you can find those opportunities. You have to be a little bit more, right, of a go-getter to go create your opportunities. Does that make sense to everybody? I know I'm talking fast today. I got coaching right after this. I started a little bit late today. I want to make sure I give you guys a good amount of information because every week I want you guys to get better. I want you guys to move forward. I want you guys to get closer to your goals. So if you are liking this video so far, if you are enjoying being here with me, Dr. Pinesett, go ahead and take a second, like this video, go ahead and comment. Let me know, hey, Dr. Pinesett, you're bringing it. And also put your questions in the box right now. Okay, I see KYZ. I don't know what your real name is, but KYZ, hello. KYZ put in the box. Let me pull your little comment up here. Actually, I'll answer Joshon's question first. Put this on the screen. Oh, wait. No, that's good afternoon. That's the only one after that. That one, the one. So Joshon asked, what about Johns Hopkins? Right? Is that just this great university, this great medical school? Yeah, Johns Hopkins is cool, but it ain't no Stanford. It ain't no Stanford. I mean, they all sit there at the top, but Stanford, and this is something that I think all of you guys can learn both for college and also for medical school. When you pick a college, when you pick a medical school, a lot of people are going to try to hype you up on their teachers, on their classes, and all that kind of stuff. But everywhere you go, chemistry's the same, medicine's the same, the classes are going to be about the same. What really separates universities from other universities is all the things that surround your core experience. So what is the support like? What is the funding like? What are the pathways and opportunities? What's the flexibility in this school? How do they create opportunities for you? And the reason that Stanford is better than every other medical school is because Stanford is a forward-thinking medical school, and they recognize it's not about curriculum. It's about providing our students with an opportunity to be leaders, not only in healthcare, but in whatever they're passionate about. And they promote you, they fund you, and they facilitate you being your best in whatever way you want to be your best in. And so that's why Stanford stands alone above all the other medical schools, is because they do that. All right? To KYZ's question, let me pull up on the screen here. What are my thoughts on going to med schools outside of the US? And this kind of gets out of the scope of this video, but it's okay. We're live action, and you showed up, so you can ask your questions. That's what we're always here about, is answering your questions. So KYZ says, what are your thoughts on going to med schools outside of the US? And I have videos on foreign medical schools, Caribbean medical schools, so check out those videos for a more in-depth answer to this. But the short answer is, it really depends on two factors. The first factor is you have to make sure the medical school you are going to abroad is legit and has a clear, established pathway to get you back to America. Too many students go to foreign medical schools saying, oh, I can get into this medical school, not taking the time to consider, wait a minute, yes, going to medical school is great, but my whole goal is to practice medicine in America. What is the pathway? Is there a way for me to get back to this medical school? And I'll give you an example of a student who didn't consider this before they picked their medical school. And I have a student who was with me and who was working through a lot of issues, disadvantaged student, and had some making up to do for early mistakes. And we had a plan laid out for her to execute getting to medical school. But she got impatient with the process. It was like, no, I'm just going to go. And she attended a medical school that was taught in Spanish. And it's been a very difficult time for her trying to get back online and back on track into America because the curriculum and because of the school's infrastructure is not set up to put students back in America. It was designed for the purpose of keeping students there to service that population. And so it's now derailed her career when she is an incredibly bright, incredibly talented woman who strictly chose the wrong medical school because they didn't listen to me. And so as a result, they're having to jump through a lot of hoops to come back. And so that's what I would say about that. So make sure that whatever medical school you choose has a pathway for you to get back to America. The second factor is you. So the first one is the school. The second factor is you. If you're going to go to a medical school outside of the United States, you must make sure that you are in a position to succeed. It's not about them accepting you and being an acceptable student. You have to ask yourself, am I a student who can excel, who can thrive, and who can earn my way back to America? Because if you go to the Caribbean, because they'll let you in. If you go to foreign medical schools, they'll let you in. They're lower admission standards. The question becomes, are you capable of stepping up and being an outstanding medical school student? Or were U.S. medical schools trying to help you out by saying, no, you're not ready, you need to fix it? So you have to make sure that you are prepared. You understand, A, that you have to be excellent if you go there. And B, you are prepared. You have the mindset, You have the strategies, you have the skills, and you have a plan to execute med school at the highest of levels to get back to residency, because that's what you have to do. And so for my students, right, I have my How to Dominate Medical School course where I lay out exactly how to do it. And so in this past cycle, I had 2 international medical students. One went to an Ivy League residency. One went to a California residency. And so both of these students are beating the odds, uber overachieving in their program, because we had strategies, we developed skill, we put a plan in place, and they executed it to become their excellence and get back to America, and all is well. But there are way too many horror stories of students who are all excited, oh, I can't get to medical school in America, but this foreign medical school will let me in. They go there and they aren't the type of student who can succeed. And either they flunk out, which is awful, because now you've got these private loans as you went to out of America. You got these private loans at a super high interest rate that you can't get rid of because student debt never dissolves, and you don't have a medical degree to show for it, and no medical career to be able to pay it off, and so you're trapped. And there was a student who emailed me because both he and his fiance decided to jointly go to a medical school abroad, and then they both struggled mightily. They both got put on probation, and they both got kicked out of medical school, and they were reaching out to say, what other options are there for us now? I'm like, whew, you're kind of stuck, because the first thing medical schools are going to ask you is, have you matriculated to a medical school before? And you're going to have to say yes. You're going to tell them, hey, I flunked out. And they're going to be like, ooh, we don't want that. And so you put yourself in a really bad spot. They had really bad high interest rates, and they were in dire straits. And so don't do that to yourself. Make sure that you are the kind of student who can excel and who's ready to actually get to medical school. Don't rush. We talk about pre-med level. Don't rush to rejection. Well, at the med school level, don't rush to get pushed right out of medical school. Okay? So that's my sentiments on going to medical school out of the U.S. Did that answer your question, KYZ? I hope it did. So as we talk about this prestige and these resources and overcoming this, the other thing that's to think about is, in terms of school prestiges, a lot of these big prestigious universities are in these major metropolitan areas. And as a result, what are they tied to? Big university hospitals. And if you are a pre-med student, clinical experience is crucial, is essential for you getting into medical school. It's one of the key ingredients. GPA, MCAT, clinical experience, that's the core, the crux of your pre-med candidacy. If you lack in one of those areas, you're going to struggle. If your GPA is low, if your MCAT's not where it needs to be, if you don't have the clinical experience, it's going to be problematic for you to get into medical school. It's going to have those things. And so if you go to a big prestigious university, or you go to a university that's big enough to have a university medical center, those university medical centers know they're going to have pre-meds, know they're going to have people that are around the university who want to be involved with the hospital. So they're going to have pathways for you to obtain clinical experience much easier than if you're at a smaller school, not tied to a hospital, and you have to A, navigate the distance to a hospital, but B, also find programs that will facilitate you getting clinical experience. And so that clinical experience component is something to look at when you're picking colleges. Another thing is that when you go to a prestigious university, that name brings with it not only the fact that they think that you are a good student because you got in there, but also a lot of these universities have reputations of difficulty and of the validity of their curriculum. And so if you go to a school that's more known for being liberal arts and not so sciencey, they're going to look at it like, this is a liberal arts school. Is it as competitive as going to this school with all these pre-meds, with these really rigorous, intense university science classes? And they may look at your transcript and your GPA differently, but it's a small fraction. Okay, so that's how the prestigious university versus non-prestigious works, is that there are some nuances. But if you look, each one of those, we talked about solutions for overcoming them. And that's the key, is whatever your obstacles are, whatever your differences are in your pathway, any student can get into medical school, but we have to recognize those differences, both in ourselves and also in the obstacles we face, right? And the path that we have to walk. And we have to attack those specifically and say, this is my circumstance. This is what I have to go through. How will I do it well? How will I make sure that I make it through and I'm successful? That's how we do it. I've talked about the advantages of prestigious colleges, but I do want to take some time to point out the advantages of less prestigious and smaller schools. There are some advantages that people don't talk about. And for me, like I said, I went to UC Irvine. When I went to UC Irvine, if you go to UC Irvine now, home of the ferocious anteaters, it is like this whole amazing, huge university. It's incredible. Well, when I went there, it was tiny. There was very little there. We didn't even have at the time when I started at UC Irvine, They had just put up a food court and it had like two little things in it. And it was an awful food court, but they had two little things, and that was it. And then by the time I left UC Irvine, there's a whole like booming food court. And then now I go back and they have multiple food places to eat on campus. It's pretty cool. But it was a small university. And I've had students go to other small universities, state schools, private schools, whatever. And there are some advantages that I've noticed that have come up. And the first thing is a lot of these universities that aren't the big prestigious ones, they're smaller. And with it being smaller, what does that mean? Well, it's a smaller environment. And for some of us, especially, how many of you guys struggle with imposter syndrome? How many of you guys are intimidated by the prospect of going to college? Right? There's a lot of you out there. I know I struggle with imposter syndrome. It's actually kind of nice to go to a smaller environment because it doesn't feel as hustle bustle pressurized. When you go to a big university, you already feel like an imposter. You don't have your confidence on. People are rushing, whizzing by. You don't look like you. It can be intimidating. You go to a smaller university, it's more of a family feel. It allows you to settle in. It feels quieter. It feels less overwhelming. And so when you don't have that confidence, it allows you to slowly build that confidence in this smaller, less overwhelming environment to grow into yourself. And for me, I know I experienced that because when I started using Run, I was really intimidated already, even without it being big. But then when I had my stumble and I was told I was in danger of flunking out, it was a nice opportunity for me to take, let's relax. And I was in this small environment. I had to look around. I was like, man, listen, I'm in this great place. I have resources here. Just go and get it done. And so being at this smaller environment was great. The other thing that's nice is that when you have smaller environments, there's the potential for more individualized attention. And this is what happened to me, right? My classes got smaller. And so at the small university, I was able to start going to my professors and hanging out office hours and getting the assistance I need. I was able to get the tutoring I needed because I was at a smaller school where I wasn't one of 4,000 students. I was one of a few hundred in a course section. And so that smaller environment, that more individualized attention really helped me get myself on track. The other thing that can happen at less prestigious schools, less science-driven schools, less pre-med heavy schools is that there's less competition. And where that is nice is that some of these schools, like the big one I can think of offhand is UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is a phenomenal school. However, it is a very cutthroat, harsh, competitive pre-med environment. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody know people at Berkeley know this is the truth. It is very what they call malignant pre-med environment. And so if you don't have, your confidence on point and you aren't capable of leaning right into that competition in that cutthroat environment, if you aren't a cutthroat yourself, you ain't a pirate, it can be very difficult. And when you go to less prestigious universities, it's not going to be that same level of cutthroat, high level competition. And so it can allow you to work more collaboratively sometimes. It can allow you to form that core friend circle where you guys support each other in your goals of getting to medical school, which can be hugely helpful. Again, as someone who was the loner, someone who didn't feel like they belonged, it was really nice that I could find at UC Irvine a cohort of people who I could connect with and who I could go through the process with. And maybe you don't have that at all these universities that are very, very competitive. And UC Irvine, even though it was small, it had the hard curve, so it was kind of competitive, but you're able to find kind of your mix of people you want to be with. All right? With all of this, I want you guys to recognize whether it's a prestigious school or not prestigious school, that's actually not the most important factor when you go to picking colleges. And I actually have a video where I break down exactly how to pick which college is right for you. But the central question you have to ask yourself is, who am I and what do I need at the college level to be successful getting to medical school? And we all have different needs. So are you someone who's like, listen, I want small class sizes? Are you someone who wants curriculum flexibility, which not all schools have? Are you someone who wants to be close to home? Are you someone who wants to be in a major city? Are you someone who wants to be out rurally where you can get out and you can hike and whatever? What do you need to flourish and to have your mind right, to have that mental wellness component? What do you need academically to be able to focus in? Are there quiet study places? Are you away from the distractions of your home? Or are you in the supportive environment of your home where you get all your meals cooked and that helps you study? Whatever is going to facilitate you being academically ready. What resources and supports do you need? So if you are someone maybe who's not research oriented, maybe you want to go to a university that is more research oriented, so that way there's built-in facilitation of you being a researcher, right? If you're someone who wants to be a community activist and wants to help inner cities, if you go to a medical school, or if you go to a college where they're not in the inner city, how can you make that impact? How can you start living that life of impact that you want to live? Yes? So critically think about who you are and what you need to get to your next step, which is medical school. And that's what I do with all my students. When I sit down with coach, I say, listen, tell me about yourself. I let them talk for a long, long time. I ask them, I have this intake form. I have to fill these multi-pages of all this stuff. I want all the information about them So that way I know who they are, and we have a frank discussion about who they are, who they want to be. And then we talk about, okay, listen, now based on all this, this is where you want to go to medical school. This is the pathway, bop, 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 and we lay it out. And that's what I want you guys to do as you go to choose your college, or to make the most of your college, is plug the gaps, see where you are, see what you need, and then get there. Yes, yes. Thank you guys so much for the comments. I appreciate it. When we're live action, guys, like I said, let me reset this. I'm Dr. Pinesett. I'm the Premed Protein expert, and I'm here every single week, live action, Mondays and Wednesdays at 4:30 to help bring you guys productivity, positivity, helping you think better, study better, pre-med better, and get into medical school. And I appreciate it when I'm on here and I'm live action, right? I've had a long day. I appreciate those of you who get on here and you comment and you ask questions, and we can dialogue, so I don't feel so alone, right? It feels like one of my actual in-person events where we're able to interact and do different things. Joshon asked, what do I think about HBCUs? And I have multiple videos on HBCUs, but in a nutshell, I'm not a big fan of HBCUs. And the reason I'm not a big fan of HBCUs is I'm not a segregationist, excuse me. I don't believe in segregation, separatism. I want integration. I believe the way forward for all people is going together, is inclusion, is getting into not having white institutions, black institutions. I'm a firm believer in making a mixing pot, because it's through that mixing that we begin to understand each other, have sympathy for each other, have caring for each other, get to know black people, white people, Hispanic people, Native American, whatever you might be. It's through that mixing that we get to know each other, and we start to normalize the fact that we are different, and we start to appreciate those differences, and we start to integrate our society. So I don't want to be separatist. I don't want segregation. I want universities, universities, universities for all people. And so I'm not a big fan of HBCUs, and there's other things I don't like about HBCUs, so check out those videos for that information. But that's my spiel in a nutshell. Let's see what other questions. We got 1 minute and I gotta go. Thank you guys for joining me so much. If you're enjoying this, please take a second, like the video, let me know. Abdullah, that's a good question. Actually, I'm going to answer that question, then we'll get out of here. This is a longer question. I could do a whole video on this, and we actually do have some videos talking about how do you develop your high-level functioning, your executive function, your critical thinking skills, critical reading skills. So please search the YouTube channel. I have tons of videos on this stuff. But in a nutshell, how do we develop critical thinking skills during a pre-med? As with all skills, skill development is about practice, is about repetitions. If you want to be a critical thinker, if you want to be a critical reader, you have to practice, practice, practice. We talk about in my group, no days unalert. We are always analyzing, critiquing, looking at ways of making ourselves better, and looking at situations critically to solve them. And so if you want to be a high-level critical thinker, every single day you have to stretch those critical thinking muscles, and you have to think critically about your life, things around you, and about all the things you do in a day. So when you do an assignment, yes, you could just breeze through it, but how can you find ways to elevate the assignment to make it a high-level critical thinking assignment? You have to create learning opportunities. You have to create development. You have to create all of these things to be effective. And so it is an active process of practicing being a critical thinker. And if you can do that, you can put yourselves in positions to problem solve, to think critically, and then also, don't forget, critical reading. If you can put yourself in a position to be a critical reader, and I have a whole video about how to develop your reading skills and your critical reading skills on my channel, so check that out. But if you can take the time to actually practice these skills, I promise you will come so far. It'll make your cars section easy. It'll make med school easy. It'll make your life easy to become an amazing critical thinker. I am a super high critical level thinker, critical reader, even though I am by nature a slow reader and not the most intellectually gifted. I have risen to the top because I make it a habit every single day to challenge myself, to push myself, to work on developing the skills that I felt were essential for my future. And so I encourage all of you guys to do the same. Look for ways to develop. Make sure you make time for that self-development. Make time to grow yourself. We have coaching after this, and I'm always shocked. So most of my programs come with coaching, and I'm always shocked. I have all these students, right? I have almost now we're like over 60,000 strong, and so I have all these students. But what's amazing is even though I have all these students, I have the same students who show up to coaching all the time consistently, right? We see Spencer and Elisa in the box right now. See Julie in the box, who I know by name and by face because I see them in coaching every week. These students enroll in my program. They have the opportunity to meet with me every single week, ask me any questions they have, get feedback from me, have me look at their notes, whatever, and they don't take advantage of it. And so that's not taking advantage and looking for opportunities to improve yourself. Make the time. Take the time to say every week, I'm going to make the time to improve, whether that means coming to Dr. Pinesett's YouTube live stream, or it means joining Dr. Pinesett's program, right, at his website, premedproductivity.com, and showing up to coaching every week. And even if I can't think of a question, I'm going to find something to ask him. Hey, Dr. Pinesett, this happened this week. Tell me about it. I'm going to milk that juice. I'm going to look for those opportunities to grow and improve. So that's what I want you guys to do. That's how you become a critical thinker. That's how you get to your future. I hope you've enjoyed this session. And yes, Elisa, you're telling him right. Coaching tonight is 5 pillars of studying less and getting better grades coaching. So you can find it underneath the 5 pillars of studying less and getting better grades inside the course day. You can find it, access it right into the course portal. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this. I will see you guys next week, right? Next Monday, we'll be live action at 4:30. If you have a topic you want to talk about, you have a question, please take the time, put your question in the box. I'll make sure I do a video about it, or I direct you somewhere, whatever, but I will help you find the answer you need, because I am the solution, guys. I am helping you reach your goals. The only reason I'm here is that I want you to succeed. I want you to dominate. And as we always say, we end these sessions, it's no excuses, just dominate, guys. Have a fantastic, magical, wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
That's it for another episode of the Premed Productivity Podcast. Show your love by smashing the like button and commenting in the box below. Today is the day, guys. No more excuses, no more complaining. You're going to take your future into your own hands. You're going to dominate. You're going to be successful. I challenge you. What are you going to do today to make your life better? Get to my website, premedproductivity.com. Grab a free ebook, sign up for a free webinar, and if you're really ready to transform, enroll in one of my life-changing courses or coaching programs. You have greatness inside you. Let me show you how to unlock it so you can dominate and make your dreams a reality. No excuses, just dominate.